So happy to be here.
Thank you for being here. And I think y'all are moderating this from within, so I will pass this over to you.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Emily. I'm one of the ERG ambassadors, and I'll be moderating today. Very excited to be here, honored to have been asked to be here and speak. I know I speak for all of us. We feel so privileged that we're getting to be here. So without further ado, from idea to impact, the journey of Divergent Minds, ERG, in promoting mental wellness.
Awesome. Hey, everybody. I'm Tiffany, and I'm a co-founder of the Divergent Minds ERG at CallRail. So we began earlier this year and have already gathered a wonderful group of leaders and ambassadors pictured here who have helped us a lot in our goal to create an open, welcoming community with engaging programming for our group members. Today, I have Josephina and Elise to help answer questions, and Emily is our moderator. So to start, we'll take you through a quick little overview of what we do and how we began. And we created this group with a defined mission to provide resources, education, and support to people who identify as neurodivergent and our allies. In our first year as a group here, we focused specifically on neurodivergence while learning from each other and experts via our engagement events. We began by reaching out to peers to share experiences in our Slack channel, kind of get to know everybody, understand their experience with neurodivergence. We found a lot of people were really open to being authentic, like just talk about their experiences. So that's kind of how we started. And then in Q2, we talked a lot about depression and anxiety in correspondence with Mental Health Awareness Month. And then this quarter, we're focusing on learning differences. And in Q4, we're just going to kind of wrap up reflecting and talking about everything we've learned. And now I'm going to have Josephina talk about why and how we got started.
Yeah, so I'll go into a little bit more depth as to why we got started. So yeah, we really just wanted to create a safe space for people who are neurodivergent or those who just want to learn more about it. And yeah, basically to have a safe space for them to share their experiences and to ask questions. And, you know, overall, we felt like there was opportunity to bring more awareness and to shed light on mental health in the corporate world. In my personal experience at other companies, there was a stigma around mental health and talking about it. And it created a lot of fear around being judged or treated differently. So we wanted to do what we can to hopefully minimize that fear for others and ourselves. So yeah, we started Divergent Minds because of that.
So I know that the process for stuff like this can look a little bit different at different companies, but I guess Tiffany and Josephina, would you guys mind going into a little detail just about what the process for setting up an ERG looks like at CallRail at least?
Yeah, for sure. So basically, it began with a super small idea. I had attended a talk similar to this one, actually, and began kind of having a conversation with a few friends at work, just like trying to feel out, like, is this something that we feel comfortable talking about at work yet? I had been at other companies that kind of had like little Slack channels on the side where you could kind of talk about mental health, but it was never like fully a program. So I kind of started testing a little bit, and then I took it to our talent and culture team. We already had quite a few ERGs at CallRail, so there was kind of a defined process where we met with talent and culture, kind of made a case for why we thought it should be a ERG, kind of outlined some of the main topics and themes that I would want to see, and then pretty quickly after that, reached out to my team to ask if anybody wanted to take the journey with me. And that's when Josephina jumped right in. And from there, it moved very quickly and we officially kicked off in January. So yeah, we've grown a lot since then. And just the process from start to finish was probably like, I don't know, 6 months maybe, just like getting everything squared away. And we had a wonderful leadership in the talent and culture team. They were very helpful in setting that up. So
awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, and so here are some of our key metrics. So we have 314 CallRail employees as of right now, and currently 108 of them are Divergent Mind members, and that will be 34% of our company. And when we started, we had a small goal of having at least, I think it was 10 members in the first couple months. But within the first week, we already had 50 members. So we were very happily surprised by that. And we do have 2 leadership meetings per week. It'll just be like our core group of leaders and ambassadors. And then we have quarterly meetings with executive leadership per year, where we outline, the things we've done, asks for leadership, and also hear from the other ERGs and what they've been doing. And we have quarterly events as well. We'll have guest speakers. We'll do lunch and learns. And then we have, for Mental Health Awareness Month, this year, we actually had 179 employees participate in those activities. And the activities, we had, one of them was a NAMI talk, where we shared a Zoom with everyone where they could just join. And, it was a talk about mental health. And we had a lot of people join that one, which was really nice. We had a Smell the Roses challenge, where we wanted people to go out and sort of post pictures of them being outside and enjoying nature. And then we had a challenge where we have virtual high-fiving in our company, and we just wanted to tally up the participation there and give a little prize to the participants who did the most. And so we had a lot of participation there. And yeah, so for that NAMI event, we had 70 employees who attended that, and that was 22% of the company. So that was really, really great.
And for those of us who might not know what NAMI stands for, what does that stand for? NAMI. Is it the North American Mental Massachusetts something?
It's the National Alliance on Mental Illness. Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah, so they came and gave a really great talk, and it was wonderful. And yeah, highly recommend checking out their resources.
Sorry, I was trying to figure out how to unmute myself on here because I'm screen sharing and the mute had disappeared. So yeah, it's the National Alliance on Mental Illness.
Not sure where I got Massachusetts, but we'll roll with it.
Well, they were from Massachusetts.
Okay,
so.
That's fair. Excellent.
All right, so kind of talking more about our events. I won't read all these off, but some of the highlights here have been that second bullet, piloting a quiet room in our office. We generally have, I think about a third of our company is remote. So 3 or 4 times a year, we have an in-person week where everyone comes into the office in Atlanta. And it can get a little chaotic when suddenly everyone is on site. So we recognize that ourselves, plus we had heard feedback from other employees. So what we did was back in, I guess it was May when we did this, we piloted, and we like to add rail on the end of anything at CallRail. So we have like pet rail. So we piloted chill rail. So it was just a room where people could go and relax. And some of those, oh, there's my mute button. Anyway, some of those pictures from that room are on this slide here, but that was successful. So we are going to have 2 permanent spaces in the office moving forward. And as Josephina said, we hosted that NAMI in our own voice presentation in May and had a really great turnout for that. And then in October, we're having a panel event. So kind of like this one, but different speakers. And they'll be kind of talking about their own personal experiences. So I think with that, we can move on to kind of how the group has been received. So I'm not going to read these quotes, but these were just some really, and you should have seen this slide when we were putting it together. We had so many quotes and we had to cut it down to just 4. But some of the themes here, the main themes we were seeing was that people realized it's not just them, they're not alone, they're in good company, and that it's okay to actually talk about it. So that's been really neat to see.
All right, well, I think that is just about the end of that presentation. So I guess let's move on to the Q&A. So we do actually have an audience question if you guys are ready for a little bit of a curveball on that one. And the question is, what strategies do we employ to have such high participation in our various events?
That's a great question. I feel like, for one, it's been really helpful to have leadership, super supportive. They've always posted about it. I feel like we have pretty good visibility company-wide. Anytime we have an event, there's definitely many posts about it. Leadership talks about it. So I feel like just that advocacy from within, even outside of the group, but within the company has been very helpful. I feel like that's kind of the main thing, is having a lot of people interested in helping out and making sure that our programming gets seen.
Yeah, and I'll just to add on to that, my observation, our Slack channel is very active, which is fantastic. We do have the benefit of some incredibly amazing and very vocal members of that group that aren't on our leadership team, but are very passionate about this and really enjoy getting involved, which is great. So I guess on a more personal level, Tiffany and Josephina, would you mind going into a little bit more detail about why you personally wanted to start the ERG rather than just coming at it from a professional need?
Yeah, I have struggled with mental health as long as I can remember. And I've gotten a lot better at being open about it. And so I kind of like found this desire to be transparent about my experience, about knowing that I'm not the only person who's going through this, especially in a professional setting where it's kind of very buttoned up and nobody's really talking about it. I wanted to kind of push that so that I felt more comfortable talking about it at work. And so I wanted to create this group ultimately to foster an open, positive environment that I could kind of work on slowly chipping away the negative stigma that I still held within myself about myself. And also like share that within a group of supportive people who kind of also understood. I always felt a fear of talking about it at work for fear of like retaliation or judgment. And so I knew that having a group where other people were experiencing the same things would kind of make it less daunting. So being able to create this group was something that I was very personally passionate about. And like I said earlier, like I had some conversations with people at CallRail who were very wonderful and open about like, yeah, I think that sounds like a great idea. I feel like that's not something that only you are thinking about. So yeah, it's coming from a very personal place as someone who has always struggled with mental health, but never really felt comfortable talking about it and wanting to change that.
Awesome, thank you. Josephina, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much echo everything that Tiffany has said. I struggle with anxiety, depression, perfectionism, which sometimes leads me to feel like I never produce good enough work, and it leads to procrastination. And just having, starting the conversation around mental health, my hope was that it would, empower me to like feel safe enough to talk about that and sort of have people understand, where's this coming from, instead of being labeled something or like lazy and not a good worker. When, some of these things are coming from like some of the mental health things that I struggle with. And, for me, the possibility of helping just one person feel more safe regarding the subject was the driving force for me to create this, because I just love to help people, and I feel like we already have, and so I'm really happy about that.
And we have two chat questions that are kind of related. First one is asking about mental health during the interview process a safe thing to do? And the second one is, I recently joined an organization that helps those with disabilities get jobs. I've always kept my invisible disability outside of the hiring process, so I wanted to reveal it to employers, but they said not to, since I didn't need accommodation. Is this typical? I can speak from my own experience with this. I myself have ADHD and depression. I was pretty forward about having ADHD. I did not know I needed an accommodation until about 1.5 years into the job, to be perfectly honest. But I was upfront with my hiring managers about having ADHD. This is, of course, this could be CallRail specific. So I would say, on the one hand, being upfront with it and being vocal that you do have that disability absolutely helps reduce that stigma. On the other hand, the stigma does still exist, and the needs of the individual, in this case you, sometimes do outweigh the larger kind of global battle that we're all fighting. If you need a job and you don't feel comfortable disclosing that you have a neurodivergence or a mental health issue or an invisible disability, use your best judgment. It really depends. It depends on the company, it depends on the disability, it depends on your personal preferences as the disabled person. Generally speaking, it should be safe since it is protected under the ADA. We all know that doesn't necessarily mean that it is. So I would say use your best judgment. And if you are comfortable disclosing, I would say absolutely do it, because the more people that people know with these kinds of differences, the less the stigma becomes an issue and the less it becomes a problem in the hiring process. Let's see, moving on. Elise, why don't you talk about how you got involved in the ERG?
Okay, so I wish I could say that my motivations were as pure and unselfish as Tiffany and Josephina's, but I will bring it back around. So CallRail, they kind of incentivize being an ERG leader. Every employee gets a $1,000 professional development budget each year, but the ERG leaders get a $2,000 budget. And there were some coding courses I really wanted to take. So when at the end of last year, and I just started at CallRail last May, so I've only been here a little over a year, but at the end of last year, I saw that they had put out the call for new ERG leaders. So I looked at the list of ERGs, I saw Divergent Minds on there, and it wasn't one that had already existed. And I was like, okay, well, this sounds right up my alley. I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder when I was a teenager, and then OCD about, 7 years ago. And actually, before I worked at CallRail, I worked at the National Alliance on Mental Illness. So I was like, okay, I seem qualified for this. And I also, being a newer employee, I wanted to get to know people outside of the same like 10 to 20 people I normally work with. So I was like, oh, this sounds like a great idea. But I am really glad that CallRail does incentivize being an ERG leader, because I've just gotten so much out of it. And it's been such, honestly, it's been a life-changing experience for me. So it's been really great. And now my reasons are a little less selfish, but that's how I first got involved.
Awesome. Well, on that note, I guess, and this is a little bit to all three of you guys, what have you learned from being an ERG leader, or what are you getting out of it?
Yeah, so for me, this is like my first kind of time ever professionally where I'm in a leadership type of position. So creating this group has definitely taught me a lot about what it means to lead. And so I've learned a lot about advocating for myself as a leader, speaking to other leaders. That's a big part of how we do ERGs here is like there's a big emphasis on making sure that we're communicating like what we're doing and what our plans are to leadership. So I feel like I've learned a lot about just like speaking leader language, but also like it's encouraged more equity and understanding of how we approach neurodiversity in the workplace. And I've learned a lot about how people can mask their neurodivergence at work. A lot of people who have joined have talked about masking and not really feeling comfortable being outward about it. And so now kind of being the lead of this ERG has made me appreciate those conversations even more and kind of seeing like the fruit of the labor that we put into this group. And to see that other people are just as passionate about it as we are. So it's removed a lot of the barriers I typically would feel around talking about mental health or having these conversations that might be too personal, just because now I have a space that I can have these conversations and feel comfortable doing so.
Yeah, and yeah, Josephina, sorry.
Okay. I mean, I've gotten so much pride out of being one of the founders of this ERG. I've also learned, other people's struggles. I've learned so much from just the members in the group. And one thing that I think we haven't talked about, but like our leadership team, our core group, gotten really close. And it feels like a little, support group of our own. And that's been really special for me to have that as well.
Ditto.
Yeah. And I think for me, kind of, it's similar to what Tiffany was saying. This is my first sort of leadership role professionally, although it's nice that it's in ERG and it's not like I'm leading a team of people, because I don't think that's for me. But anyway, but it's made me realize that people are always, when you're a leader, people are always watching and observing. So my responses and reactions to things and interactions with people, I feel are scrutinized a little more than they probably were before. So I think it's caused me to be a little bit more mindful of the way I interact with people and respond to things, which is something I probably needed in my life. So it's been good. And as for what I'm getting out of it, it's always so, I'm not really a touchy-feely person, but it is very heartwarming when I see some of the posts people make in Slack. And it's just our group members. It's not like us trying to initiate a conversation or anything. Somebody asked a question the other day about, if you've taken this medication before and you're comfortable reaching out to me privately, let me know. Somebody else just posted today, unprompted, about a video about highly sensitive people. So it's just really nice to see our members kind of taking ownership. And I do feel a lot more connected to people across the company now. And I'm 2/3 of the way through those coding classes, so I did get that out of it too. But yeah, I just feel like I've grown a lot personally and professionally through this.
Awesome. So we got about 5 minutes left and a couple of audience questions. So we're going to try to do these a little bit rapid fire. So first one, I worked for a company that said they are too small of a business to properly accommodate my husband and I for our health and neurodivergent needs. That if they were a bigger company, then maybe they could, but as a smaller company, they say that they can't. But to me, it seems like accommodations can be made regardless of the size of a business. I can probably go ahead and answer this one. I've done a lot of research on like accommodations, both from a legal and less official, I guess, standpoint. You're right. I do agree that accommodations can and should be made regardless of the size of a business. That being said, for an accommodation to be protected by the Americans with Disabilities Act, it has to not put undue burden on the company, both financially and as far as resources go. And it cannot interfere with the core nature of the job. So, for example, a good example would be being able to sit on a stool in a retail situation rather than standing. That's fine. But if you are say, hired to work at a call center and your anxiety is such that you cannot speak on the phones, obviously that's a little bit of a different situation. But those are kind of the two core requirements as far as an ADA compliant accommodation goes. Is it has to be reasonable, it cannot put too undue burden on the company, and it cannot really interfere with the core structure of the job in question. So another question, can you describe the reactions you usually receive when you mention your ADHD and depression anxiety during interviews? Does anyone else want to take this one? Does anyone else have any experience with bringing it up during interviews?
Yeah, I truthfully never have, but being at CallRail has taught me that I absolutely can and should, especially as an individual you feel comfortable doing so. But I never have before. It was something I was always too scared to do.
I've never received it. Elise, you go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say I haven't either. I know that legally I can't be discriminated against being hired or in the hiring process, but I think I kind of still have that self-stigma myself, and just it's a little scary to me. So I figure if it's something we need to address, we can address it after I get the job, maybe.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I've only disclosed my disabilities in an interview maybe once or twice. That being said, I do have a background in the liberal arts. It's not as big of an issue with more artistic companies, groups, etc. So I haven't gotten a reaction yet in the corporate world, but so it hasn't been bad. Especially with the ADHD, a lot of the time it's just questions as far as like, what does that look like for you? Are you able to still get the work done? Stuff like that. So yeah, I've never had anyone say like, you have ADHD, we can't hire you. If that helps at all. Anyone aware of a way that businesses can offer mental wellness services outside of their healthcare membership? I would say an ERG is a great way that businesses can offer mental wellness services as far as just additional programming, resources, access to community, etc.
Yeah, if there's one thing we want everyone to take away today is that you're definitely never alone if you are experiencing an invisible disability. Advocating for yourself will always be worth it. And if you're interested in setting up a group, just do it. This ERG has been so exponentially, so much more than I ever could have expected, and highly, highly recommend getting involved however you can.
All right, do we have any final remarks as we're wrapping up, because we are at time? No? Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for having us. We have really, really enjoyed being here. It's been so much fun getting ready for this and getting to collaborate, and hopefully we'll get to talk to you guys again soon and give some updates on how the ERG has been going.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.